And we're live. It is Thursday. It is July 24th, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 a.m. and I overslept this morning because I was dreaming about Nazis being after me. And my dream took place during the war, um, and when the estimable Tamara Kaufman Wittes woke me up and told me it was 7:30, and I told her that I had been dreaming about fighting Nazis. She asked me if I had prevailed, and I answered, the dream logic still in my head, yes, I changed my phone number. And I think this is a metaphor for something, or maybe for everything, um, that we can all beat the Nazis in our kind of Babylon, Berlin dreams by changing our phone number so the switchboard doesn't work anymore. Uh, Folks, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. It's gonna be a great fucking day. And
You're watching Dog Shirt TV, a fucking revolution in morning television.
you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a freaking revolution in morning television. The snowman agrees. And one of the revolutionary features, of which there are many, is that sometimes I roll out of bed literally a few minutes before showtime, and I'm still processing my dreams, though I can't really remember them, but they have a punchline. And whenever you have a dream with a punchline, that is a good one. And another one of the revolutionary features is that every now and then the estimable Sophia Yan, whose name many of you know because she is a great reporter for the Sunday Telegraph, for the Telegraph, which for which publication she has done courageous reporting on Uyghurs and other scary matters that involve confronting the Chinese authorities, for which she has been banned from China. But she is also, of course, some of the rest of you will know her because she is the pianist who plays music for Lawfare podcast. And some of the rest of you will know her because she is your yoga teacher. And that would include Mike Feinberg, whom I connected to Sophia years ago because he needed somebody to chat with in Chinese, and I thought he should know Sophia, and so he does, and now she's his yoga tutor. And sometimes one of the revolutionary features of the show is that Mike can't join because he's got a yoga appointment by Facebook with the estimable Sophia Yan, but then she turns out to be a bit under the weather and cancels. And so when I send around after rolling out of bed at 7:40, I send around a text to the Dog Shirt TV texting community who's joining the show tomorrow, fully expecting Mike to say, I have yoga. And he says, Sophia canceled on me, so I'm in. And so I have a co-host today, so your show is partly dependent on Sophia Yan's health, and therefore Mike's yoga schedule as a derivative function of Sophia Yan's health. All of which is a long-winded and somewhat discombobulated way of saying that we are not allowed to have fun anymore. But we are allowed to have a less flexible than he would normally be at this hour, Mike Feinberg. And there are rumors that Jonathan Rauch may show up at some point in this hour, although, such are rumors that you can never really rely on them, particularly if you're planning a show. Mike, what is on your mind this morning, other than
Um,
not doing yoga?
quite a bit. I have a day plan that could only be described as absolutely fucking delightful, and is going to be filled with pleasures, aesthetic, culinary, and physical.
All right, well, let's hear
Yeah.
about it.
So I'm going to start after we do this podcast. I'm going to go to the local Pilates studio in lieu of yoga and do an hour on the reformer. Then my
Do you
wife has
feel
a bit of
reformed after you're on a reformer? Like, is it? I find that word like vaguely Torquemada-ish.
yeah.
You put somebody on the rack and they're
Mhm.
spiritually reborn or something. When you put somebody on a reformer, when you get off, do you feel like you've been
Yeah,
reformed?
yeah, I do actually. I just it genuinely makes me feel better physically and mentally. It's we've done solid core together, which is very similar, but Pilates, because you're not dealing with black lights and mediocre modern music,
Oh, mediocre
is
is
just a lot.
praise for that
I'm
music.
trying to temper my otherwise yeah. So Pilates I find much more relaxing, but it's a great workout, and I do feel a bit more flexible and just put together at the end of it.
All right, so
Um,
you will actually be reformed today, and
yeah.
then after reforming yourself, what happens?
So my wife has a bit of a sweet tooth, and given what we are about to experience, I've been trying to make sure we have appropriate snacks on hand for when we return from the hospital. So I've been baking a ton, things that can be frozen and pulled out at will. But this morning I'm going to try my hand at homemade ice cream for the first time in my life.
Hmm.
And once that's done, I have a backlog of magazines I very much want to get through. I have all the special features from the Seven Samurai Blu-ray that we watched the other day that I want to watch now, which is like 3 hours of documentaries about Kurosawa. Then I'm going to go to an assisted stretching session, which is like Torquemada. It's basically personal training, but for flexibility. And
And do they stretch you or do they coach you?
both. So it's helped me develop a really good at home stretching routine. But for about 45 minutes, they just treat your body like a pretzel and contort you into positions that are very painful at the time, but make you feel remarkably loose thereafter.
Hmm.
And then,
That sounds horrible.
and then, um, I think after that, my wife and I may watch another movie tonight.
Wow. I have nothing like that on my agenda today. I'm going
Mhm,
to do some job interviews for filling some open
mhm.
positions at the Lawfare Institute, and I'm going to write a column.
Nice.
And the
I
column will be dreary because the column is always dreary.
It's a dreary world. Speaking of which, I wanted to follow up on something you mentioned during your introduction. You made an offhand Babylon Berlin reference. Have you seen the fourth season yet?
No.
I was religiously devoted to the first three when they were on Netflix, but the fourth one came out on a channel to which I do not subscribe, so I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
So I loved the first two seasons, did not love the third, and
Yeah.
lost interest in it because the third was subpar. But I also have not watched anything, either movies or television, in like 2.5 years. And um, so the reference was not reflective of current habits. But I
Okay.
do think the first season of Babylon Berlin was completely stunning.
It's brilliant. Unfortunately, it inspired me to read the books on which the series was based, and they're not good. It's one of the few adaptations that
We
very
call it
much
the
eclipses the
Godfather
source
effect.
material. What's that?
We call it the Godfather effect.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
rare, that rare book, or you could also call it the Figaro effect,
Hmm.
um, where the adaptation is just leagues better than the
Yep.
original. Um, um, all right. Well, look, guys, the as as they say, the phones are open. That's a kind of weird. We have to have um, a
Uh,
better version than that. But
there's a
uh,
bunch of questions about the ice cream, apparently.
oh,
Yeah,
really?
so I'll just answer these as I'm not using a Cuisinart ice cream maker. We thought about getting a homemade ice cream maker with a built-in compressor, but we already have a KitchenAid stand mixer, and the ice cream attachment for that was much more affordable. So we're doing that. It is not custard or gelato. It is just old-fashioned ice cream, and the flavor is going to be white chocolate strawberry to start. And if that's successful, I'm going to follow it up with a pint of almond brittle.
Alice asks, "Does Ben know everyone?" And I have no idea what that is in reference to.
That's
Um,
in reference to you introducing me to Sophia.
oh, yeah, no, that would be not a good example of this
Yeah.
because Mike and I have been friends for about 10 years, and Sophia is kind of I mean, I don't, she's kind of a mentee of mine.
Mhm.
And I met Sophia when she was an undergraduate, and she went to Oberlin College, where I used to go. And she was, there's a tradition at Oberlin of alums housing, uh, housing current students when they do projects in Washington. And Sophia was doing an internship here, and she lived in our basement for a while. So I have known Sophia since she was, I mean, literally a teenager, or, you know, 20-ish. And when she was living in China, and Mike and I were workout buddies, and Mike needed somebody who was the FBI wouldn't get upset about if he was speaking regularly to in Chinese. I said, "Well, I have this friend Sophia who's a reporter and a native Chinese speaker." So that is not a an example
But
of me knowing everybody. It's an example of me introducing people I know.
but you know, I didn't take you up on the introduction until like 2 months ago.
It's
You attempted to introduce us years ago when I was still living in DC, but I was so worried about being in contact with a journalist given my position at the FBI. I never reached out to her until like 2 months ago.
I didn't realize that. I thought
Yeah.
because when you uh uh that's interesting. Okay, I had missed that part.
Yeah,
By the
we only officially connected when I joined LinkedIn in the recent past.
I see. Okay. So I stand corrected on that point.
But no,
Anyway,
you attempted to introduce us like 6 or 7 years ago. I just never followed through.
I see. Okay. Well, anyway, Sophia is it is a my knowing Mike is a creature of Mike having accosted me at an event, um, and my knowing Sophia is a creature of my tendency to mentor people. But it's not. It and we should. By the way, we tell Sophia, since you're in more regular touch
Yeah.
with her than I am these days. Tell her that she needs to come on the show. Um,
She'll be in DC, I think, in like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she messaged me. So, but
Yeah.
she can join the show from Istanbul. So,
Yeah.
and we could have, she could play piano, we could talk Uyghurs, we could talk, Sophia's good fun.
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, I don't know everybody. I wish I did because then I could figure out how to help all these people who need jobs connect to all the people who have jobs, which is a problem that's been stewing at the back of my mind for the last several months as the shedding of executive jobs and jobs that depend on executive service and money continues apace. I think somebody needs to set up a really, really good job network. And I've been trying to do it informally, but it's not as effective as it should be. And I would like to know everybody so that I could be more effective at it. Um, all right, what else is on people's minds? And, somebody should jump in and actually join the screen. Um, Cleor asks, why in your columns you wrote that the Epstein case should be investigated by Congress? What can be a possible outcome of this kind of investigation? And what can Congress do that other agencies could not? So, behind Lior's question is the idea that in Israeli law there is this idea of a commission of inquiry, and there's this tradition in Israel that when something really bad happens, the government sets up what's called a commission of inquiry, and it is uh, staffed in a particular way defined by law. It's usually chaired by a Supreme Court justice, and it investigates things and then reports. The United States has no mechanism like that. When the executive branch does an investigation, it is usually in the form of a criminal investigation. And a criminal investigation is a really, really powerful instrument, but it has a few limitations. One is that if there are no crimes committed, or if there are crimes committed that for one reason or another you can't prosecute, or you choose not to prosecute, it doesn't report stuff to the public as a general matter. There are limited exceptions to that, but by and large, when you close a criminal investigation, you don't issue a report that says, look, Mike Feinberg is a dangerous guy. He did X, Y, and Z, but we're not going to charge him because of, A, B, and C. Those are internal memos and they don't become public. And by the way, that's a good thing. Because sliming people that you're not going to charge is generally a bad idea. So the problem in the US context is what to do when what you fundamentally want is an accounting of something rather than a criminal prosecution. You want public accountability. Well, we have a few mechanisms for that. One is inspectors general, but inspectors general are limited by a few things.
You're
One is
also speaking in the present tense, which might be an error in our current moment.
right. One is that they suck as a general matter, and that they're often really not as good as they should be. And that is a controversial statement, but I will stand by it. A second is that they're jurisdictionally limited to reporting on the conduct of their agencies. So, for example, the Justice Department Inspector General doesn't get to investigate Jeffrey Epstein. It gets to investigate at the most the Justice Department's handling or the FBI's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Um, and A third problem is that a problem that's derivative of that is that they are in something that crosses jurisdictions that many agencies are involved with. An inspector general can be a really clumsy instrument because it's really focused on its own agency. So what do you do when what you really want is a public accounting of something that isn't limited to how the government handled blank? And the answer traditionally is that Congress investigates it. And what Congress can do in response to such investigations is a few things. One is the main one is they can pass laws, and congressional investigations are an often important presage to legislation. And the second, at least in theory, is that they can impeach people, and specifically, they can impeach the president. Now, realistically, that's not at issue here, but uh, they have significant, though different, investigative powers from the executive branch, but they are much better tailored to the current situation than, say, dumping a whole lot of FBI files in public would be. So that is the answer, the U.S. Law 101 answer to Lior's question. Um, Hey, everybody's putting their questions and comments in the chat instead of coming on screen and doing it. Y'all should show up and, you know, say hi, because it's actually a little bit hard to talk and read at the same time.
I've been reading them while you were giving your explainer. It seems to be a conversation about where one can buy liquid nitrogen if one wanted to make nitrogen frozen ice cream.
Interesting. Well,
Now
that
there,
is I have very few suggestions about buying liquid nitrogen.
I have quite a few from my previous line of work, but I think it's in a very different context, and it would not behoove any of us for me to divulge where you could get what we would refer to as precursor chemicals for
Yeah, I
various
think we're not
bad
we're not
things.
going we're not
Yeah,
going if the sentence includes the words precursor chemicals,
yeah. Let's just
we're just not
cut it
going
off at
there.
the knees. Yeah.
Don't want to know what they're precursors for very much.
Yeah.
Well, just think about the Oklahoma City bomb, which was made out of nitrogen fertilizers,
Fertilizer. Yeah.
and you can let your imagination run wild.
And
Mhm.
that's exactly what I was doing, and that's why I don't think it's a good thing to talk
Yeah.
about, not
Yeah,
on a
Well,
exactly.
let's
protected
pivot to whatever
network
Carol wanted to
But
anyway.
talk
for the
about.
Right.
ice cream makers in the audience,
Yes.
the chat, have at it, guys. Uh, you know, liquid nitrogen is cold.
Mhm.
Carol, what's on your mind this morning?
Well, pretty soon you're going to give me the John Hawkinson restriction, Don't come in for 5 minutes. But
No,
but
no, no. John Hawkinson is not restricted. The
well,
the
I
issue
mean,
with
periodically you've said somebody jump in, but John Hawkinson, please wait a few minutes, see
yeah,
if
no, no,
somebody.
but that is not a comment of John about John
No,
Hawkinson.
I
That's a
understand that.
comment
I
about
understand that.
everybody else. That
Oh,
John is behaving the way everybody should behave, which is to be energetically involved. But the problem is if only one person is doing that, then it is uh uh then it looks like John is, hogging the field or kind of being like Hermione Granger or something. And so my point is, John should wait to force other people to be involved. It's not actually John is a model of how things should work on In Lieu of
John
Fun.
is amazing.
The the problem, and you know who you are if I'm talking about you, is everybody else is not behaving that way. So I don't want to discourage John from behaving that way, and I don't want to discourage you from behaving that way because you have been a total champ the last couple weeks. And so I just want to say, if I put that restriction on you, it is praise, not, I'm not actually saying, um, you know, Carol, you've been too aggressive. What I'm saying is, let's force everybody else to be a little bit more like Carol. Um,
Yes,
and
Hermione,
John
we know
knows.
you know the answer.
Yeah, exactly. And John knows that I am not restraining him out of annoyance at him,
Oh,
but out of
I figured. I was
Can
just
I
saying, I'm popping
can
up
I
so
ask a
often
point of
lately.
clarification?
yes.
Who is Hermione?
Oh, that is
Oh,
a
Harry
Harry
Potter.
Potter character who always
Okay.
raises her hand right away.
Okay.
Very,
And
very diligent, brilliant student.
right,
Okay.
but who is also annoys other students by being persistently eager.
So like the
Um,
equivalent of a law school gunner, as
yes,
we would call them. Okay.
right, but grade school level. So,
Okay.
Carol, what is on your mind this morning?
Well, I thought it was kind of predictable that I would show up when somebody said Seven Samurai
Ah, yeah. So this is great.
and
So
Kurosawa,
Carol is an expert on
Yep.
Japanese history. Um, Mike is,
particularly the time period Kurosawa likes to make movies about.
and
Okay.
Mike is a true film. I would say, well, not a film buff because that makes it sound trivial and purely recreational. I would say a serious student of film. And so have at it.
I want to preface things just by saying that Kurosawa is amazing. And
Yes.
anything I say that is nitpicking about his history is just nitpicking. He's really excellent. We're not talking, this is light years away from Shogun territory, right?
One of the top 10 filmmakers in all of cinema history, easily,
Oh,
if
do you
not
like
higher.
Ozu?
Yeah.
Yasujiro Ozu?
I have really mixed feelings about him. I like what he's trying to do, and he's a huge influence on other filmmakers I really enjoy. But if I'm being totally honest, I find he makes the same film over and over again. And it's a good film. I mean, Tokyo Story is great, but it's not one
I
I want to
used
watch
to use,
50 times. And
right.
Most people don't realize Tokyo Story is actually a loose remake of an American film from a couple decades earlier that Leo McKern made called Make Way for Tomorrow, which is also great. But sorry, I didn't mean to go off on
That's
a
okay.
tangent.
I
Yeah.
did not know that. I think Tokyo Story is wonderful. I do watch it repeatedly. I used to use it in my classes.
Okay.
And I actually found it a lot easier for me to watch repeatedly than Rashomon, but only
Mhm.
because the score to Rashomon is basically bolero, and I
Yes.
hate it. It drives me nuts. It is so redundant and repetitive. I just go crazy. But that's a great movie,
I
Kagemusha.
I
will. I want to persuade you to rethink your hatred of Bolero, which I had to do. And there is a wonderful episode, I believe it is of Radiolab, about why Bolero is so repetitive. And and I'm going to find it and send it to you, and it will make you think differently about Bolero.
That would be nice because it pops up repeatedly and I just want to scream.
so I suspect
Moving right along.
part of
Obviously, I'm not much of a Philip Glass fan either, but um, speaking of, repetitive, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say I suspect part of the reason that Tokyo Story never resonated with me the way it has with many other people is because I've never been a parent before. And given the specific plot line of that film, I suspect if I rewatch it 5 or 10 years from now, it'll probably hit me in a very different way than it did when I saw it in my 20s.
I've never been a parent either, but I see it more but what I see in it that I like is the changes in society. and
Hmm.
how and one of the reasons I use it with students is to get them to understand a lot more about modern day Japan and what they think of as modern day Japan. Because I will ask them something like, of the kids, right?
Hmm.
Which is the one that you think most typifies what Japanese women are like? And of course, they'll say it's the Setsuko
Right.
character, right? Which of course is not at all the case, right? The daughter who was so pushy and selfish, that was much closer to the kind of Japanese middle-aged woman that we ended up with. In fact, um, there was a comic series about middle-aged women it was called Obatarian. Now, Oba, it means aunt, and it's this
Hmm.
sort of general phrase for middle-aged women. And so, but Batarian refers to that somehow was the word that came about the zombie army, right? So it's this, sort of marauding
Yeah.
attitude. And so Obatarian is the middle-aged woman who just barges her way in and runs everything.
Mhm.
Okay, so that itself becomes a stock character, and of course Setsuko Hara is the ideal,
Mhm.
and and I guess part of what I like is things that I recognize I'm because I can speak the language, right? But
Mhm.
in the scene where the parents come back through the beauty parlor, and
Mhm.
the daughter is saying, or daughter-in-law is saying, says to the people, "Oh, that's friends from the country," or something like that. The word that she actually uses is acquaintance.
Okay.
So basically, what she's describing the parents as an acquaintance that some acquaintance from the countryside that we have, and so that things like that particularly stand out. So I didn't know about the precursor, Make Way for Tomorrow. I'll have to check that out.
It's great and it's utterly heartbreaking. But very good. McKern is one of those early American directors who's never really gotten the acclaim he should. Um, just I think part of that's just because so much of his stuff was out of print for quite some time before Criterion Collection started bringing it back.
I want to get back to one of my favorite stories about using Rashomon in a
Mhm.
classroom. Somebody I know, showed it to his class, and afterwards a student came over and said, "I don't get it. It's just the same thing 3 or 4 times."
I
So,
think I
some
think the
some
first
people are
time I
pretty
saw
impervious to things.
the first time I saw that film, I think was actually in a philosophy class, not in a history or film class.
I used it with graduate students. One of my colleagues asked me to speak with his graduate students,
Mhm.
about this, and so I showed them this film, and I said, "Okay, so let's talk about this movie," and they did um, okay, I'm not going to be snotty. The graduate student, pseudo sophisticated, yes, we all know these things, kind of thing, and they're like, "Well, yes, I mean, history depends all on your point of view," and I said, "No, no, you'd misunderstand. This is your primary sources. These are your primary sources. You have to figure out what you can from their primary sources." And they're like, "But they're like memoirs, right? It's a trial transcript,
Mhm.
right? It's a trial transcript. This is your primary material." And that, because that's how I see it as a historian. And it's certainly, because it's a truism that everybody sees something different. And I tried this with a class and was horrified, in fact, by the result. But what I said to the class was, "I want you to try and figure this out, assuming that everybody is telling the truth from where they stand." And the way that they all decided to um, resolve this was contrary to my instructions. Of all people, they said it was the woman who was lying about the rape. I was like, "What?"
how could you watch that film and
Do
come to
that.
any sort of conclusion?
I'm sorry, what? You
No,
froze up on me there.
no, so it's been a while since I saw that one. But if my memory is working correctly, which it not always does, um, I don't understand how you could watch that film and come away with any sort of conclusion that one of the four points of view is correct.
Um, all right. Um,
Anyway, sorry.
no, I am going to I'm not going to cut this short because it is a great conversational thread. I am going to ask the Greek chorus to do something in the while this conversation is taking place, which is we are trying to schedule the first three episodes of Mara, the Mara Book Club, Make America Read Again. And I have a an issue that I need to resolve, which is what day of the week and what time of day is ideal for this. It's not going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning because I want our West Coasters to be able to participate. And so it's going to be sometime between, say, 5 and 8 p.m. And the question is the ideal time uh, is this a Sunday afternoon or evening thing? Is it uh, a a, a, a weekday evening? What are people's preference for ideal times and days of the week for this? Um, and we will create a schedule. Back to you guys, but while while we're talking Japanese film, uh, uh, give me your preferences as to time and day.
Sorry, I was just typing and my hands are shake. My hands shake, so it's hard to type.
So,
Um,
Carol, I don't know if this
what do you
is.
think of what's his name? Oh, my brain is just does these things in the mornings. The one who did Tampopo, the one who got his face slashed for the movie
Izami,
about the yakuza.
Itami,
Thank you.
Huzo Itami.
Yeah, sorry. What do you think of Itami?
What is he? I don't know the name offhand. What are the films he directed?
Tampopo,
He's much more
Taxing
modern. He's
Woman,
did Tampopo, Taxing Woman,
The Funeral, which
The
is
The
Funeral.
only one of those I've seen is Tampopo. And it was long enough ago that
I
my
love him,
okay worth it.
and
So
I love
I will add him to the list then.
he's and
I love Tampopo particularly, although I will say he has a fair amount of gratuitous sex in his
Okay.
movies.
yes, and
I
he
mean,
has a
it's gratuitous explicit, but but that's that's something else. One of the things I love about Tampopo, right, is there's the movie Seven Samurai, right, and of course
Yep.
then there's the Magnificent Seven, which is based on the Seven Samurai, and
Yes.
Tampopo
and
goes
which
back and
has the best
references the
one of the
Magnificent
best
Seven.
musical scores ever of a film written by
Mhm.
the great Elmer Bernstein.
Yep.
And and then you go to and then so Tampopo refers back to the Magnificent Seven.
Hmm.
So it's this very cyclical
Yeah.
passing back and forth of cultural memes, if you will.
Well, and the
Um,
whole thing is styled as literally a spaghetti western. It's a western uh, with that's about noodles,
Searching for the perfect ramen.
the perfect ramen noodles, right? It's literally a spaghetti western. Um, I will also say that in the uh, uh, Juzo Itami corpus, the funeral. is an underrated, I mean, is an underrated masterpiece.
It is. It's great.
It's very, very funny.
And
Um,
it's very, it really captures the atmosphere of funerals
yeah,
very well, I thought.
and he's and then the other thing that we have to say about Itami is that he was an extremely courageous guy, and he was the first, I think the first real person of any type to take on the Japanese organized crime syndicates, and he did it by making a movie that just kind of made fun of them and treated them, like, refused to take them seriously, and they found it so offensive that they, slashed his face
Yeah.
and, like, almost killed him. And so I like, the guy was super funny. The movies are really fun to watch, but he was also a really courageous person. And his wife, whose name I can't remember right now, who's the lead actor in all of these films, is a startlingly good performer. And so I really think he's underrated, frankly.
I'm a fan. I love that. My Japanese friends were horrified that I would use that in my classes because of the ideas of Japanese society that you can get from it. But one of the things I thought about it was the humor translates so well, between the Japanese and the American context, and there are little vignettes that are, I mean, they're crazy, but they do look like daily life in Japan. They wanted me to do, they would have preferred I did Shall We Dance, which there was an American remake of that with Richard Gere, I think, and I couldn't figure out how that could work in an American context. It's
I
about
have never
a
seen it.
businessman, a salaryman, who decides that he wants to learn to ballroom dancing, and he
Yeah.
has to keep it a secret because it's not really acceptable for a middle-aged man to do that. And he gets emotionally involved with the instructress on a very subtle level, right? Because he's happily married. And that really does give you a lot of daily life and the life of the Saruman and his family. Um, and so, I understand why they wanted me to use it. I just thought Tampopo would be a lot more fun for students because you got to keep them awake. Um, but have you seen the American remake? Does that make any sense?
Shall We Dance? It was called, I think. Yeah, but I
I
have
mean,
not
Well,
seen it.
does the movie make, I mean, does the American movie, I mean, I didn't watch it because first of all, the Japanese movie is so good, but
I haven't seen it. But your mentioning of Richard Gere is, I'm gonna make probably my most controversial opinion of film in response to your raising Richard Gere, which is that his remake of Breathless, the Americanized one, I will argue is a better film than Godard.
interesting.
well, I just want to say that you hate Godard, so
I
that
do, I do.
so that's not a.
There,
I
there,
mean, like,
That
there
does,
are,
yeah.
there
there's a
are,
disclosure you need to
yeah.
make.
I There are
Uh,
two Godard films I very much love, and I could ignore the rest of them.
can I just point out that right now, the last half hour of this conversation has will explode thousands of people's idea of what FBI agents are, and they will be wrong because Mike is like the only serious film history student, it was the
Mhm.
in the FBI, most of whom are in fact knuckle draggers.
Oh, I would disagree with
No,
that. I mean,
I'm
see,
joking.
It's funny. CIA always likes to portray themselves as the intellectually pretentious component of the IC, but like the FBI can hold its own. I'm not going to say everybody, but I mean, I
It
was
has better
fortunate enough.
chemists.
What's that?
It has
Yeah,
better chemists.
yeah.
I mean, like
We
not as
never
good
did
makeup
LSD
artists.
experiments on defectors. I mean, yeah,
Right, not as good makeup artists, not
yeah.
as good at uh, costumes and that sort of thing, but really, really good scientists
Hmm.
and for better forensic accountants.
Yep.
Um,
What I know about the CIA, I'm afraid, mostly comes from Le Carre, so it's not a very positive idea.
No, no, it's not. There's an author named Charles McCary who I think he was published by Overlook Press. He's dead now, but he was a former case officer who wrote a series, sort of like The Quest for Carla, in that like it's a recurring cast of characters with clear villains on one side. I mean, well, no, there's no such thing as a clear villain in a Le Carre novel. McCary's sort of an American analog. He's worth reading. Um, and there's a fictionalized account of Angleton's life by a guy named Robert Littell, who's that's worth reading as well. That book's called The Company.
Oh, I've
so,
heard of that.
important question from Alice: is Holly Berkeley Fletcher also atypical of CIA analysts? The answer to that question is yes, but mostly in the sense that Holly is highly extroverted, and in a lot of ways, Holly is typifies the analyst culture, which is to say, she's a PhD in some uh, you know field who devotes herself very, very intensively to a region, has language skills, right? This is classic CIA analyst culture. You get some people are like economists who have, but one thing that typifies analyst culture in general is that people tend to be pretty introverted, and Holly is. Um, and there are exceptions to that, of course, but Holly is effervescent and you know like very actively social, and I don't associate that with any analyst culture. The joke about
The
NSA.
NSA one, yeah.
Yeah, how do you tell the extrovert at NSA? And the
He's
answer
the
is
one
he's the
looking
one
at
who looks
your
at other
shoes.
people's shoes.
Yeah.
Um, and that's an NSA thing that's more about you know um, cryptographers and mathematicians, but it's not these analytic cultures in general are ones where people are very studious, and Holly is they don't there's a reason why you don't see a lot of people, former CIA analysts, hosting shows. But you know, like FBI culture, CIA culture is much more diverse than people think it is. The um, stereotype is pipe smoking people from Yale, and there is some truth to that historically. And look, there's some truth to the FBI culture too. When I went to, I think the first time I went to um, have lunch with Jim Comey in the FBI building, I was kind of surprised by how many New Jersey accents I heard just kind of walking around the building. And there really is this, you hear these you just know they have Italian last names, or you hear Boston accents that and there's like that's not the case in most buildings in Washington.
No, but that's also largely generational. I think if you look particularly at the cadre that was recruited post 9/11, not immediately afterwards, because it's a long application process. But if you look at the cadre that was recruited, like 2 or 3 years after 9/11, up until the present day, I think that holds less true. Um,
No, I think that's right. It's much more diverse. You get many fewer names like uh, Jack McGuff, and fewer names that you kind of associate with New Jersey Italians. But it's still a thing,
it
and
is. There's actually a line, I think it's in Andy McCabe's book, or it may have been somewhere else, where Jeff Sessions makes a comment about, I liked the FBI better when they were all Irish Catholics without tattoos.
yeah. Well, I didn't. But there is something lovely about like the Jeff Sessions is saying that in his usual friendly racist kind of way. But look, there is most of these cultural stereotypes about agencies, and does have like some basis in reality. And when you tour the CIA campus, you definitely feels a little bit more like it could be a university,
Mhm.
except that it has all these classified facilities. And when you tour the NSA, it really does like
Yeah.
feel like you're walking in out of Caltech. And when you walk through the FBI building, there is a gun culture
Mhm.
and a kicking down doors culture
Yeah.
and a you know people trade war stories about you know terrorist raids.
Yeah.
Um, Your Highness,
Sorry.
what's on your mind this
You
morning?
know, I have questions. Um, Boy, do I have questions. Um,
All right. One thing, we're getting a lot of background noise from your channel, so when you're not speaking, keep yourself muted.
okay. Um, so my first question is for Mike. This is for 100 points. Um, what does someone with with legal training bring to the FBI that someone who does not have that uh, bring to the FBI? So
There's two answers to that. The answer that would be best for FBI PR is that it brings an analytical bent that allows you to better peruse fact patterns and figure out what statutes apply and things along those lines. In my experience, the best advantage it gave me was an ability to write affidavits at an exponentially quicker pace than people who did not have a legal background. And when you're dealing with a time sensitive investigation, that is a skill that should not be undervalued. There were many times I had to turn around, traditional criminal search warrants or FISA warrants in a less than 24-hour period. And I think had I not had training through law school and a couple years as a practicing lawyer, I may not have been able to do that.
Were you
okay,
allowed to help other people with theirs to make it faster?
It depends on, the person signing and swearing to the affidavit has to have firsthand knowledge of the facts therein. So I can help with formatting and background research and organizing, but in terms of actually drafting the affidavit, it would be pretty unethical for me to do it for somebody else.
Just
Okay.
curious about whether it would have been okay to help share your expertise, but
Yeah.
it's very useful to know. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now is my CIA question. What are um, the good non-polemical histories of the CIA?
Well, that's a very complicated question. First of all, I don't think you want a general history of the CIA. You want a periodic history of the CIA, um, because the periods of it are so different. Um, I have heard, much to my surprise, that Tim Weiner's history of the post January 9/11 era is terrific.
I'm in the
Um,
middle of it right now.
yeah, is it not terrific?
No, it's good. I thought you were going to praise Legacy of
No,
Ashes,
Legacy of
which was
Ashes
awful. Yeah.
is a not very good book.
Yeah.
But
This is considerably better.
his more recent work has been well praised. I'm going to leave this question otherwise to Mike because he just knows
I pulled a
intelligence
bunch off the
literature
shelf.
in a way that very few people do.
So what I would actually I think Ben hit the nail on the head. You want to pick a period and go based on that. The
Or an
early
incident.
what's that? Yeah,
Or so like my single favorite intelligence history book is a book called A Billion Dollar Spy.
yes, which is about the recruitment and running, and we won't give away the ending, but about a Russian asset. That is a book when people first start working intelligence matters, even in the FBI. That's one of the go-to books. I've got a
And it
couple of
but it's
favorites.
about a single
Operation, yeah, it's
operation,
about
not
a
about a
single recruitment and running of an asset. And it's great. The so I think the early years are the most fascinating, and this is a relatively new one by Scott Anderson, not the Scott Anderson who will be familiar to lawfare readers. But this is about the formation of the CIA, and it supersedes one by Evan Thomas that is largely about many of the same characters. Both of those are excellent, and oh, if you want a later period, Bob Woodward's book on the CIA in the 1980s, particularly its South American misadventures, is quite good. And don't underestimate the memoirs. Richard Helms, one of the early directors who was forced out as a consequence of, well, you could shade it a few different ways. Let's just say a consequence of the Nixon administration's attempts to misuse the CIA resulted in Helms leaving. There's also another story in which you could say he lied to Congress, and that resulted in him leaving. Um, but his memoirs, called A Look Over My Shoulder, are great. And he also shares the distinction. He is the only American journalist, which was his first career, to ever have personally interviewed Adolf Hitler, which was before his OSS and CIA career. But
um yeah, so there's also in the periodic incidents Joby Warwick's book about the uh coast killings attack is terrific. I'm trying to remember what it was called. The triple agent, I believe. He had just uncommon cooperation from, I think, mostly from Jordanian intelligence, actually. And but it's a really good portrait of operations in Afghanistan.
oh,
And
I'm forgetting my favorite. Sorry. Um, I mentioned this a while ago. Milt Bearden and James Risen. Milt Bearden was the head of the anti-Soviet division. James Risen was a very respected national security reporter. They co-wrote a book called The Main Enemy about the last decade of the Cold War that is absolutely phenomenal.
And yes, John Hawkinson, it is pronounced James Risen. And look, it is 9 o'clock. We got to go. Um, Folks, we're going to be back. It's going to be tomorrow. The discussion about the most petty thing the administration has done in the last 7 months, the single most petty thing, will be on Monday. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's not even. I mean, it's in a league by itself. Um, that's going to be on Monday. So be sure to join us all then. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. Oh, I do know what's going to happen tomorrow. The great Minna Olander will be joining us. Um, and I'm excited about that. And all of you Minna Olander fans should come ask her questions about Northern European security. Uh, that'll be tomorrow. Before that, we have today. Make it a good one.